My wife ignored my messages all day. At 11 p.m., she finally came home and smirked. You know what happened? I had a one-night stand with my boss and I'd do it again. I just nodded and finished my meal in silence. The next morning, when she woke up expecting coffee in bed, she got, "You ever have one of those nights where your gut just knows something's off?" Yeah, that was me sitting in my dimly lit kitchen at 10:58 p.m. poking at a plate of leftover fried rice like it had personally offended me. The clock above the stove ticked loud enough to double as a soundtrack for bad decisions. 11 hits and right on cue, I hear the front door open. Her heels started clicking down the hallway like an impatient metronome. Each step timed perfectly to announce, "Brace yourself. I'm about to ruin your week." She walked in like a movie villain who'd already practiced her monologue in the car. Same beige trench coat she always wore when she wanted to look important. The irony, it was the same one she wore the night she promised we'd always be honest with each other. Spoiler alert, she lied. Her eyes didn't even meet mine. They hovered somewhere above my head like I was furniture or worse, a subscription she'd been meaning to cancel. She tossed her purse on the counter, sighed dramatically, and I knew something theatrical was coming. Then came the smirk, the kind of half smile that should come with a warning label. "You know what happened tonight?" she said, her tone sharp, casual, cruel, like she was about to tell me my favorite show got cancelled. I didn't answer, mostly because I was chewing, and because I wasn't sure which version of her I was dealing with, the drunk one, the guilt-ridden one, or the one who thought emotional warfare was foreplay. "I had a one-night stand with my boss," she said like she was reciting the weather and I'd do it again. You could have dropped a feather in that kitchen and heard it echo. But me, I didn't do the whole dramatic fork drop thing like you see in movies. I didn't yell, throw plates, or faint into a conveniently placed couch. Nope. I just chewed my rice slowly like a monk meditating through a crisis. Each bite was a mix of soy sauce, betrayal, and the faint taste of my sanity trying to exit my body. Somewhere between bites 3 and 4, I swear I heard my dignity pack a suitcase. The thing is, when you've been married long enough, you learn to spot the exact second your relationship flatlines. Mine died somewhere between one night stand and I'd do it again. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and nodded once. Not a dramatic nod. A small polite one. The kind that says, "Copy that. Message received. Enjoy the flames, sweetheart." It's the international sign for, "Oh, you messed up, but I'm too calm to make this fun for you." Apparently, she mistook that nod for weakness. Cute. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and smirked wider like she'd just won a prize for most honest villain of the year. "You're not going to say anything?" she asked, genuinely disappointed, as if she wanted a performance. Like I was supposed to give her the kind of meltdown that makes for good gossip later. "Sorry, Belinda. Wrong audience. I was done auditioning for roles in your soap opera." I swallowed, took a sip of water, and said, "Congratulations." Just one word. The silence that followed, oh, it was delicious. You could almost hear her brain short-circuiting. She blinked a few times like she was trying to process whether I was being serious. I wasn't smiling, but I wasn't angry either. Just calm, which, trust me, scared her more. Calm men are dangerous. They're the ones who start planning. Her jaw tightened. "You're not going to fight for me?" she said, her voice shaky, confused, maybe even a little scared, like she'd expected fireworks and got a spreadsheet instead. "Fight for what, Belinda?" I asked, my tone even. "You're moving in with your boss and pregnant with his child, not joining a pottery class." That landed like a punch she didn't see coming. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence stretched long enough to make both of us uncomfortable. Then she grabbed her phone, muttered something about needing space, and stomped off toward the bedroom. I didn't follow her, didn't beg, didn't ask questions. Instead, I sat there watching the condensation trail down my water glass like it had all the answers I needed. My brain was running faster than a caffeine-fueled accountant during tax season. I was angry, sure, but under that anger was something sharper. Focus. I looked at the leftover rice, then at the woman disappearing down the hall. And I swear I felt this strange sense of peace, like, yeah, this is it. The plot twist my therapist warned me about. And in that moment, as the door to our bedroom slammed, I mentally opened a brand new Excel sheet in my head and titled it Operation by Belinda. Column A, Assets. Column B, Passwords. Column C, Exit Strategy. I even gave it a color-coded format because if I was going to dismantle a marriage, I wanted it to look organized. I sat back, exhaled, and smiled. A real one this time. Not because I was happy, but because I knew something she didn't. Calm wasn't weakness. It was precision. She thought she'd just detonated a bomb. She didn't realize I was the guy who built the fallout shelter. She came back out a few minutes later, hair tied up, face freshly washed, wearing one of my t-shirts like she was auditioning for sympathy. "You're not saying anything," she muttered, almost defensive. "You don't even care." I shrugged. "Care is expensive. I'm saving mine for someone who deserves it." Her eyes narrowed. "You're unbelievable." "Funny," I said, standing up and collecting my plate. "That's what your boss probably said, too." That one hit. She huffed, stomped past me again, and slammed the bedroom door again. I rinsed my plate, loaded the dishwasher, and actually laughed. A real laugh, the kind that comes when you've hit the point of no return, and suddenly feel lighter. Because honestly, what else is left to lose? I poured myself a drink, turned on the TV, and flipped through channels until I landed on one of those late-night infomercials about self-improvement. Some shiny teeth guy in a suit was saying, "Your life can change in one decision." I raised my glass to the screen and said, "Cheers to that, buddy." Around midnight, I heard her crying through the door. Not loud sobs, just that quiet, muffled kind that sounds like guilt trying to negotiate with pride. I didn't go in. I'd done that before. Comforted, consoled, believed. Not this time. That chapter was over. And for once, I was going to let the silence do the talking. I went to my desk, opened my laptop, and actually created that Excel sheet for real. Yeah, I'm that guy. Heartbroken, but efficient. I started listing every shared account, every asset, every subscription, Netflix, Spotify, the damn Costco card. If she was walking out, she wasn't walking out with the perks. By the time I was done, I'd mapped out a 12-step plan to reclaim my peace of mind and most of my furniture. It was therapeutic, like journaling, but with more formulas. At one point, I paused, staring at our wedding photo framed on the bookshelf. We looked happy, two idiots grinning at a future that apparently came with fine print. I walked over, picked it up, and set it face down. Not out of anger, just closure. That version of us didn't exist anymore. And honestly, good riddance. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I missed the days when quiet meant peace, not aftermath. But then, somewhere between the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of that damn wall clock, something in me settled. The ache didn't vanish, but it stopped screaming. That's when I realized maybe this wasn't the end of my life. Maybe it was the start of my rebranding arc. I sat on the couch. Milo the dog, my only reliable roommate, jumped up beside me, his head tilting like he was asking, "We good, man?" I scratched behind his ears and said, "Better than ever, buddy. We're downsizing drama." He wagged his tail, which I took as emotional support. The next morning, I'd probably have to face her again. Pretend to coexist while pretending not to see her texts from Mr. Bossman. But tonight, I let myself breathe. I'd survived the confession. The bomb went off and I was still standing barefoot, bruised ego, but standing. As I turned off the lights, and headed to bed on the couch, obviously, I muttered to myself, "You did good, man." Because sometimes surviving is enough. I pulled a blanket over myself, stared at the ceiling, and smiled one last time. Not because of her, because of what she'd just given me. Clarity, motivation, and the rarest gift of all, a clean break disguised as betrayal. And right before sleep took over, I thought about how tomorrow would go. She'd probably wake up pretending nothing happened. Maybe she'd make coffee. Maybe she'd try to act normal. But I knew better. The moment she confessed, she set off a countdown she didn't even know existed. Day 1 of Operation Bye Bye Belinda had officially begun. And damn, it was going to be beautiful. Morning sunlight used to mean something peaceful. Fresh starts, new chances, the smell of coffee, the illusion that life wasn't a complete circus. Not today. The sunlight crawling through my blinds felt judgmental, like even nature was in on the gossip. I woke up on the couch, neck sore, dignity bruised, and the faint echo of last night's. I slept with my boss still buzzing like a mosquito in my skull. You know what's funny? Betrayal doesn't wake you up with a slap. It wakes you up with clarity and a cramp. I rolled over, groaned, and checked the clock. 7:13 a.m. I had exactly 47 minutes before she emerged from the bedroom, pretending life was normal. So, I did what any emotionally stable, freshly betrayed husband would do. I made coffee strong enough to file for divorce on its own. The sound of the coffee maker sputtering filled the kitchen. That smell, normally my favorite, hit different. This wasn't comfort. This was caffeine for war. I stood there in my boxers and an old t-shirt that said, "World's okayest husband." The irony stung and then I heard it. Her voice, that familiar, casual tone like she hadn't detonated my evening 12 hours earlier. Coffee, please, she called out, stretching her syllables like I was her personal barista in this emotional Starbucks we apparently lived in. Usually, I'd bring it to her with foam art, maybe a dumb heart shape on top, because I used to believe in trying. I'd even drop a kiss on her forehead like an idiot who thought loyalty was a team sport. Not today. Today, I stood in the doorway sipping my own cup, smiling like a man who'd just discovered the Wi-Fi password to freedom. She looked at me from the bed, hair messy, face unbothered, like betrayal was part of her skincare routine. Coffee? She asked again, impatient. Oh, I said, tilting my head. You mean the one-night stand special? Comes black, bitter, and served cold. The way her eyes blinked once, twice, confusion blooming like a bad rash was pure art. She actually had the nerve to look offended. What's that supposed to mean? I took another slow sip because timing matters in these things. I think you know, Belinda, unless amnesia was part of the pillow talk, she frowned, sitting up, clutching the blanket like it could hide her shame. You're still mad about last night? I raised an eyebrow. Still, you confessed to cheating, bragged you'd do it again, and went to bed like you just finished reading a bedtime story. So, yeah, still might be understating it, she huffed, brushing her hair back. I was drunk, right? I said, nodding. Because tequila makes you honest, not creative. You didn't invent that story. You just lost the ability to filter it. For a second, she looked guilty. Then, like clockwork came the deflection. You've been distant lately, always working. You made me feel neglected. Ah, there it was. The classic villain monologue. You made me cheat. I almost clapped. I'm sorry, I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. I didn't realize loyalty was something you canceled when the Wi-Fi got slow. She glared, but I didn't stop. You felt neglected, so your solution was to play Twister with your boss. Genius. What's next? Rob a bank because you felt underpaid? She rolled her eyes. You're being childish. Childish? I laughed. No, childish is eating cookies before dinner. I'm being factual. I walked over to the counter, poured her a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, and carried it back, setting it down with a smile so polite it should have been illegal. Here, I said, your morning dose of consequences. She stared at the cup like it might bite her. What's your problem, Belinda? I said, leaning on the door frame. My problem is I used to think we were a team. Turns out I was playing basketball while you were interviewing for the other side's cheer squad. Her lip trembled for half a second. Then she recovered, grabbed the cup, and took a sip just to prove a point. I swear the bitterness hit her soul. She set it down fast. You're being dramatic. No, I said, I'm being honest. You should try it. I hear it's trending this season. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The kind of silence that doesn't need words because the air is already screaming. She tried to hold my gaze, but guilt's heavy. Eventually, she looked away. I made a mistake, she whispered. I tilted my head. Just one, because that's not how you described it last night. That one landed. Her shoulders tensed and she started fiddling with the blanket again. Can we not do this first thing in the morning? Oh, sorry, I said. Mock apologetic. I didn't realize betrayal had office hours, she scowled. You're an ass. Thank you, I said, sipping again. Took years of marriage to earn that title. She swung her legs out of bed, clearly done with my entire existence. I don't have time for this, she muttered, heading toward the bathroom. Of course not, I said. You've got to get to work. Wouldn't want to keep your boss waiting. Her hand froze on the door handle. Bingo. She turned around, fire in her eyes. You're not funny. Oh, I disagree, I said, grinning. I'm hilarious. You just lost your sense of humor around the same time you lost your moral compass. She disappeared into the bathroom, slamming the door. The sound echoed through the house, but it didn't shake me. I felt good. Not healed, not happy, but powerful, like a man who'd stopped drowning, and realized he could stand up in the water the whole time. I went to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and laughed when I saw her meal prepped lunches neatly stacked on the top shelf. All those color-coded containers for a woman who couldn't organize her conscience. I pulled one out, labeled Tuesday tuna salad, and fed it to Milo, who wagged his tail like he'd just inherited wealth. Enjoy it, buddy, I said. You're eating guilt-free. The rest of the morning was quiet. Too quiet. She got dressed in silence, doing that thing where she pretends to be mad to cover up being caught. Every move she made screamed, I'm the victim here. She grabbed her purse, avoided eye contact, and headed for the door. Hey, I said as she reached for the handle. She paused. What? You forgot something? She turned, confused. I lifted her empty coffee mug. Your cup? Thought you might want to take it with you. Symbolic since it's as empty as your apologies. Her mouth fell open. No words, no defense. Just one sharp exhale through her nose before she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, I was alone. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It hummed. The air felt lighter. My kitchen wasn't a crime scene anymore. It was the headquarters for Operation Bye Bye Belinda. I cleaned the mug she didn't drink from, wiped the counter, and caught my reflection in the window. I looked tired, sure, but there was something else there, too. Focus. The kind that comes when a storm clears and you can finally see the wreckage you're going to rebuild from. I picked up my phone, opened a note, and started typing. Phase 1, mental detachment complete. Phase 2, information gathering in progress. Phase 3, legal execution pending. Yeah, it was dramatic, but so was she, and I was done being the supporting character in her show. I spent the rest of the morning doing little acts of quiet rebellion. Cancelled her streaming subscriptions. Changed the Netflix password from Belinda Baby to Try Again Liar 123. Unlin her Amazon account. Even changed the smart tone voice to male and renamed it Karma. So now whenever she'd say Alexa, the voice would respond, I think you mean consequences. It was petty. Beautifully petty. Around 10 a.m. Tara called. Hey man, how's married life? He asked clueless. Defunct, I said. What? Yeah. I sighed, stirring my now cold coffee. Turns out my wife's extracurriculars include networking. Horizontally. There was a long pause. Then Tar whistled. Damn, bro. You good? I chuckled. Define good. I'm emotionally homeless but financially awake. That's dark, he said. You want me to come by? Nah, I said. I've got this. I'm starting my new side hustle, revenge, but make it subtle. He laughed. Only you would turn betrayal into a project plan. Of course, I said heartbreak's just rebranding with more paperwork. After we hung up, I leaned back in my chair, feeling something weirdly close to excitement. My marriage might have imploded, but my sense of humor thriving. By noon, she texted, we need to talk tonight. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Sorry, busy making coffee for someone faithful. Petty, absolutely satisfying, beyond measure. I set my phone down, poured another cup for myself, and raised it in a toast to the quiet. Here's to mornings without pretending. I said aloud. Milo barked like he agreed. And for the first time in months, my coffee didn't taste bitter. It tasted like freedom. If you told me a month ago that my post-breakup coping mechanism would involve Excel, I would have laughed in your face. But there I was, a day after Belinda's morning performance of Coffee, Please, sitting in my home office in pajamas, drinking cold brew out of a whiskey glass, creating what might be the most emotionally satisfying spreadsheet ever conceived. While she was at work, or whatever she was calling her extracurricular activities these days, I began my new favorite hobby, data collection. Forget yoga, meditation, or journaling. Revenge organization therapy. That was my jam. I opened my laptop, cracked my knuckles, and titled a new document. Operation Bye Bye Belinda, Assets, Accounts, and Annihilation. Column A, Accounts. Column B, Passwords. Column C, Transfer Status. Column D, Emotional Damage Level. I wasn't crying, I was auditing. C, Belinda always said I had control issues. What she didn't realize was that control is just responsibility with better branding. So, while she was out building her career, Reed practicing workplace betrayal, I was building my firewall. My first stop, joint bank accounts. I logged in, changed the password from Love Wins 2020 to Karma Wins 2025 and set up notifications for any transaction above $5. I also might have renamed the savings account from Vacation Goals to You Played Yourself. Then came insurance policies, life, car, health, you name it. I dug through drawers like a detective in a Netflix series called CSI, Marriage Fraud. By the time I found her hidden folder labeled Private Docs, I was practically humming. Inside were old receipts, tax forms, and a love note from 2018 that read, "We'll always be each other's person." I stared at it for a second, laughed and said, "Guess she outsourced that position." Then I fed it to the shredder. Therapy in motion. But the real joy came when I got to the passwords. Oh, the passwords. I had every single one stored in a secure manager because unlike Belinda, I don't trust easily. I printed the list, highlighted the ones I planned to change, and labeled them like trophies. Netflix done. Amazon done. Spotify access revoked. Enjoy ads, trader email. Oh, this one was fun. I set an auto reply that said, "This inbox no longer accepts messages from cheaters or clowns." I even added a small formula at the top of the sheet. Equals if Belinda equals honest miracle expected outcome. I sat back, sipped my coffee, and smiled. Revenge wasn't loud. Revenge was neat. Around noon, I texted my best friend, Tar. Now, Tar's the kind of guy who believes that every emotional problem can be solved with either encryption or tacos. He's an IT consultant by day and a chaos enthusiast by night. I sent him a simple message. Need your help securing my emotional assets? He replied in 10 seconds. You're finally hacking her. No, I wrote, just locking down everything before she gets creative. So, digital divorce prep. Exactly. Operation Bye Bye Belinda. I'll bring my laptop in queso. By 3:00 p.m., Tar was in my living room barefoot eating chips on my couch while scanning through my laptop like it was a hostage situation. Man, he said between bites. You're turning heartbreak into a business plan. Of course, I said deadpan. Divorce is just emotional rebranding. I'm pivoting. He laughed so hard he almost spilled salsa on my keyboard. You're serious completely. I'm done crying. I'm spreadsheeting my feelings. He gave me a look that said, you've lost it, but I respect it. Then he started coding. I can set up two-step verification for everything. Want me to block her devices from logging in? Absolutely, I said. If she wants Wi-Fi, she can ask her boss for the password. While he typed, I scrolled through her Instagram out of morbid curiosity. New post, a flat lay of coffee, croissant, and a caption that read, "Self-care isn't selfish." I laughed so loud. Milo barked. Self-care girl. You're the reason therapists have job security. Tar leaned over. Oh, she posted. Let me see. He looked at the photo, squinted, and said, bro, that's the same bracelet you bought her for your anniversary. I stared. Oh my god, she accessorized infidelity. Want to hack her account? He asked casually. I grinned. Tempting. But no, we're not playing dirty. We're playing smart, right? He said, smart revenge. Got it. For the next few hours, we worked like accountants on caffeine and spite. We backed up every financial document, cross-referenced property deeds, even took screenshots of her online purchases because nothing says betrayal like buying lingerie during a recession. By sunset, I had a color-coded system that could have impressed the IRS. Green meant secured, yellow meant pending, red meant lawyer time. I sat back, exhausted but proud. It's beautiful, I said, staring at the screen like Michelangelo admiring the Sistine Chapel. Hark nodded. You've officially weaponized Excel. Heartbreak requires structure, I said. He laughed. Man, you're going to turn this into a TED Talk. Title, How to Monetize Betrayal, A Journey in Conditional Formatting. We clinked our coffee mugs in a toast. That night after Tar left, I sat alone with my masterpiece of a spreadsheet glowing softly on the screen. Each cell represented control, closure, and a little bit of vengeance. I even added a note at the bottom that read, she thought I'd crumble. Joke's on her. I calculate. I printed a copy for safekeeping, slipped it into a folder, and placed it in the drawer next to our marriage certificate, which now felt like a warranty that had expired early. Then just for fun, I opened the bank app again. Her latest transaction popped up. $87.50 Wine Loft Bar and Lounge. I smiled. Oh, you're still at it. I didn't feel jealous, not even mad, just strategic because if she thought she was the only one capable of surprises, she clearly never met me mid-motivation. I started researching divorce attorneys, landed on a name that sounded like she charged by the ounce of confidence. Mrs. Is Delgado Escu. Her website tagline read, "Don't get everything." I bookmarked it, poured another drink and leaned back in my chair feeling something close to peace. Revenge wasn't chaos, it was math, and I was damn good at math. By midnight I had my plan neatly stored in both physical and digital form, password protected, cloud backed, and printed on premium paper because if I was going to burn down a marriage I wanted it to look professional. I sat there in the glow low of the laptop screen. Milo curled up by my feet and realized something that actually made me laugh out loud. She thought she'd broken me. But what she'd really done was wake me up. I looked at my reflection in the dark window and said to myself, congratulations, Belinda. You just turned a man into an organized hurricane. Then I shut down the laptop, patted Milo on the head, and whispered, revenge may be slow, buddy, but it autosaves. When people imagine hiring a divorce lawyer, they picture dramatic phone calls, boxes of tissues, maybe a playlist titled Heartbreak and Chardonnay. Me, I walked into Mrs. Delgado's law office like I was clocking in for a board meeting. I didn't want pity. I wanted precision. I didn't need therapy. I needed a woman who saw a marriage not as sacred, but as a contract that could be dissolved faster than bleach on a red wine stain. Mrs. Delgado didn't disappoint. Her office smelled like victory and lavender sanitizer. Diplomas lined the wall, each one basically screaming, "I've ruined happier couples than yours." She was in her 50s, silver hair cut sharp enough to slice egos, wearing a suit that looked like it came with its own legal precedent. The second she shook my hand, I knew Belinda was in trouble. Her grip was firm, her nails immaculate, and her eyes carried the kind of confidence you only get from winning arguments against men twice your size and IQ. "So, Mr. Carver," she said, settling behind her desk. "Tell me everything, and don't leave out the juicy parts. I bill by the hour, but I enjoy good storytelling." I smiled. "You'll get a bestseller." "My wife confessed she had a one-night stand with her boss recently," she asked, pen poised like a dagger. "Last week, right before bedtime." "Great timing, really. Nothing like ruining sleep and trust in one sentence." Mrs. Delgado nodded sympathetically, but smirked just slightly. "And you have proof?" "Oh," I said, leaning forward with the confidence of a man who'd already built a case stronger than Starbucks coffee. "Mrs. Delgado, I have more documentation than the IRS." Her eyebrows lifted. "Show me." I opened my laptop, clicked the folder labeled Exhibit Belinda, and turned the screen toward her. She scrolled through bank statements, texts, and photos with the enthusiasm of a woman watching her favorite courtroom drama. "Oh, she's done," she said finally. "This is like watching a cat bring a bird home and pretending it's a gift." "I want it handled cleanly," I said. "No yelling, no chaos, just paperwork and poetic justice." Her lips curved into a satisfied smile. "I like your style, Mr. Carver. Calm vengeance is my favorite flavor." For the next hour, we quietly rearranged my life like we were redecorating after a flood. House title under my name only, legally transferred through a quiet amendment she drafted before it even finished explaining. Joint accounts locked. Cards flagged for suspicious activity. Mrs. Delgado typed so fast it sounded like vengeance had a soundtrack. "Your wife's about to learn," she said. "That silence isn't forgiveness, it's strategy." I nodded. "I just want to protect what's mine and maybe give karma a little nudge." "Consider it done," she said. "You'll sign papers today. I'll file by morning, and by the time she realizes what's happening, she'll be swiping a decline card at Target." Music to my ears. By the time I left her office, I felt 10 pounds lighter, and not just emotionally. It's amazing how freeing it feels to turn heartbreak into logistics. I drove home, windows down, wind in my face, blasting, "We Are the Champions." Because irony is a coping mechanism. When I got home, I made myself a sandwich, sat at the kitchen table, and just admired my work. The silence in the house didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt earned. Then my phone buzzed. "Belinda. Hey, why is my car not working?" I stared at the screen, chewed my sandwich slowly, and smiled. Then I typed back. "Maybe it's seeing other people." Read at 6:17 p.m. No reply. I laughed out loud. Even Milo looked impressed. "Don't look at me like that, buddy." I told him, "You'd do the same if you had thumbs." A few minutes later, she called. I didn't pick up. I wanted her to marinate. 10 minutes after that, another text. "Belinda, I'm trying to buy groceries." "What's going on?" "Me? Maybe karma's cutting carbs." I tossed my phone aside and poured myself a drink. God, it felt good. Not cruel, just balanced. The universe had been tipping in her favor for too long, and I was just redistributing resources. Around 8, Tara called. "You sound happy," he said suspiciously. "I met Delgado," I said. "The lawyer?" "Yeah, she's like if Judge Judy and Wonder Woman had a love child," he laughed. "That good?" "She reorganized my financial life in an hour. I feel spiritually audited." He whistled. "So, what's next now?" I said, leaning back. "Now I wait. Delgado's filing the paperwork, locking down the rest of the accounts, and I'm sitting here watching justice slow cook." He chuckled. "Damn, you really went full spreadsheet on this." "Of course," I said. "If she can multitask between lies, I can multitask between revenge and meal prep." He laughed harder. "You're sick, man. I prefer methodical." We hung up after a few jokes about Belinda's inevitable meltdown. I poured another drink and flipped on the TV, but I couldn't focus. My phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail notification. Curiosity 1. I hit play. Her voice small and tight. "Oliver, please call me." My card got declined at the pharmacy. I needed to pick up something important. I smirked. Hope it was humility. I didn't call back. I didn't even feel bad. This was the woman who'd looked me in the eye and confessed her affair like she was reading a grocery list. She'd earned this little inconvenience. The next morning, I met with Mrs. Delgado again to sign final documents. She had a file thicker than a Bible, neatly tabbed and labeled. All you need to do, she said, sliding it across, is sign here, here, and here. And congratulations, Mr. Carver. You're about to become independently unbothered. I signed each page with the satisfaction of a man autographing his own comeback story. When I was done, she said, now, one last thing. Do you want to freeze her access to the joint car lease? I grinned. Absolutely. Let's see how her boss likes playing chauffeur, she chuckled, tapping a few keys. Done. Anything else? I thought about it, then asked, can we flag her credit for a review? Mrs. Delgado's grin widened. We can absolutely do that. God, I love this woman. As I was leaving, she said, you're handling this remarkably well. Organization is cheaper than therapy, I said, that earned me a laugh. Driving home, I passed Belinda's office. Big glass building full of people pretending to love spreadsheets and pretending not to gossip. For a second, I thought about walking in, giving her boss a polite nod, and saying, thanks for the free motivation. But I had bigger plans. This wasn't about confrontation anymore. This was chess, not checkers. I stopped at a coffee shop instead, got my usual black, and sat by the window. I started sketching out my next move. If Mrs. Delgado was the attorney of destruction, I needed her counterpart, the accountant of ascension. Someone to help me rebuild smarter, richer, and legally bulletproof. Enter Marcus Chun, CPA and part-time miracle worker. Tar referred me, said the guy makes the IRS blush. I called him that afternoon. Marcus Chun, he answered, voice smooth, calm, like a financial therapist. Hi, I said. I'm looking for help untangling some joint finances divorce. You're good. He chuckled. I'm better than good. I'm efficient. Send me everything. I emailed him the spreadsheet from Operation Bye Bye Belinda. He called back in 10 minutes. Sir, he said, odd. This isn't immaculate. You categorized emotional damage levels. I shrugged, though he couldn't see it. Helps with perspective. He laughed. I'll handle the financial transfers. You handle not texting your ex? Deal, I said. 2 professionals, one in law, one in numbers, were now handling my cleanup. And me, I just had to sit back and sip coffee like a man watching karma hit its milestones. By evening, Delgado emailed. Filed and confirmed. Expect updates within 72 hours. 3 days. In 3 days, my life would be officially Belinda-free. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I realized I hadn't checked her social media all day. That was progress. I didn't need to see her filtered healing journey. I was living mine unfiltered and tax-deductible. At 9:42 p.m., another text came through. Belinda, I don't know what's happening, but this is cruel. I looked at the message for a long second, then typed. It's not cruelty, Belinda. It's closure spelled correctly for once. Send. I turned off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and let the quiet settle. Mrs. Delgado was right. Silence isn't forgiveness. It's strategy, and damn, was mine working beautifully. A week later, Belinda claimed she had a late meeting. Cute. That phrase had become the national anthem of cheating spouses everywhere. Late meeting translates to, I'm about to betray you. In high definition. She said it with her usual fake casual tone, wearing that tight black dress that used to be reserved for anniversaries, not accounting discussions. She spritzed perfume like she was prepping for battle, then leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. I caught a whiff of betrayal disguised as Chanel. Don't wait up, she said. I won't, I replied, smiling just enough to make her wonder if I knew something. Because I did. See, I'm not the jealous type. I'm the data collection type. When your wife cheats with her boss, emotions are pointless. Excel sheets and strategy. That's where the power is. So, when she left, I finished my sandwich, poured another cup of coffee, and activated Phase 4 of Operation Bye Bye Belinda, the stakeout. I wasn't doing it out of obsession. I was doing it for closure and maybe evidence. Because when you're dealing with someone who lies professionally, screenshots are the only language they understand. Now, a man in my position doesn't just follow his cheating wife in his own car. No, that's amateur hour. I rented a gray sedan from Hertz, the kind of car that screams divorced accountant with nothing left to lose. I even wore a baseball cap and hoodie. I looked like the human version of background noise. As I sat in that rental, parked a block from her office, I realized how absurd it all was. Me, a grown man, watching my wife's workplace like I was in some off-brand spy movie. But then, at exactly 6:42 p.m., the office door opened, and there she was, my soon-to-be ex walking out with her boss, the man himself, Mr. Forehead Shine 30,000. Let me describe this dude. Picture a middle-aged man with a hairline retreating faster than his morals, wearing a suit that cost too much to cover so little integrity. His laugh was loud, fake, and probably flammable. They were talking too close. You know, the kind of close that makes you want to liao your soul. Yeah, that they crossed the street, his hand, accidentally brushing her back like she was a malfunctioning printer. He was trying to reset. I clenched my jaw, not out of rage, but out of second-hand embarrassment. Watching them flirt was like watching two raccoons fight over a shiny trash can. They got into his car, a silver Lexus that screamed midlife crisis, and drove off. I followed at a respectable distance because, again, I'm not reckless, I'm strategic. They headed downtown, right into the heart of temptation, the Ember Lounge, a bar so pretentious it served artisanal ice. I parked 2 blocks away, walked in like I belonged there, and found a spot in the corner booth. I ordered a drink. I didn't even want something with an umbrella and too much sugar because blending in requires sacrifice. And there they were sitting at the bar like 2 rom-com extras who hadn't read the part where everything goes wrong. She laughed loudly. The kind of laugh she hadn't used around me in months. That hurt for about 3 seconds before I realized something. She was performing overcompensating. Guilt has a laugh track and hers was on full volume. I took out my phone, opened the camera app, and started recording photos, videos, timestamps. Each one labeled in my notes like Netflix episodes. Episode 1, Corporate Affairs. Episode 2, The Bonus, She Didn't Earn. Episode 3, HR's Worst Nightmare. I zoomed in just as he leaned closer, his hand brushing her thigh. I swear I could hear the distant sound of Karma warming up its engines. At one point, she whispered something into his ear, and he laughed so hard he almost spilled his drink. I didn't know what she said, but it was probably something poetic like, "My husband still thinks meetings end after 5. My drink arrived. I raised a glass in a mock toast to myself. "Here's to loyalty," I muttered, taking a sip. It tasted like lies and lime. I watched them for an hour. 1 hour of hand-holding, whispering, and touching that made me want to Clorox my memory. Around 9:15, they finally stood up. She adjusted her dress. He adjusted his ego, and they headed out. I paid the bill, left a generous tip because I'm petty, not cheap, and followed them at a safe distance. They didn't go back to the office. They didn't even pretend to. Instead, they went straight to the parking garage next door where I caught them kissing under a flickering light. It looked less like romance and more like an HR complaint waiting to happen. I recorded everything. Every kiss, every touch, every bad decision illuminated by that one stubborn fluorescent bulb. And as I filmed, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt documentation. When they finally drove off in separate cars, I sat in the rental, staring at my phone screen. It was all there, proof that could silence any courtroom dramatics. I exhaled, leaned back, and said to myself, "You just turned pain into evidence. Congratulations. You're officially your own private investigator." Back home, I called Tar. He picked up on the second ring, already chewing something. "You alive?" "Oh, I'm better than alive," I said. "I'm productive." He laughed. "That sounds dangerous. What did you do?" "I have footage," I said. "Video, timestamps, everything. It's like Discovery Channel for idiots in love." "No way. You followed her." "Of course," I said. "I'm not stalking. I'm collecting data for research." He whistled. "Man, I should have brought popcorn. Want me to edit it?" I grinned. "You read my mind. Add subtitles and maybe some dramatic music. Something classy like Another One Bites the Dust." "Got you," he said. "You want transitions or straight cuts?" "Trance," I said. "This betrayal deserves smooth fades." He cackled. "You're insane." "I love it." While Tar worked his editing magic, I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of whiskey. Not out of sadness, out of celebration. It's not every day you catch betrayal in 4K. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. Video file, Corporate Affairs, Final Cut.mpp4. Tar had delivered. I hit play. The opening sequence was cinematic, soft jazz, black and white filter, and a title card that said, "Based on poor decisions and cheaper wine." Then came the footage. Belinda and her boss laughing, touching the kiss. Dick even added dramatic slow motion at the perfect moments. It was art, petty art. Halfway through, I was laughing so hard I had to pause it. Milo looked at me confused like, "You okay, man?" "Oh, I'm fantastic," I told him. Netflix could never. By noon, I'd saved the video in 3 different folders, 2 drives, and 1 encrypted cloud. You don't collect gold and leave it unguarded. That afternoon, I went to see Mrs. Delgado again. She took one look at my smug face and said, "You found something better than something?" I said, handing her a flash drive. "I found cinema." She plugged it in, pressed play, and within 30 seconds, she was laughing. Actual laughter, the kind that echoes with disbelief and joy. "Oh, this is beautiful," she said. "Do I hear jazz? Classy, right?" "Very. The judge will love it." I grinned. "So, what's next now?" She said, "We add this to the file. Judges love evidence with timestamps. It screams competence." As she spoke, I realized something. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't angry. I was free. Watching her fall apart from a distance wasn't cruelty. It was closure in high definition. When I got home that evening, my phone buzzed again. "Belinda, can we talk tonight?" I stared at it, smirked, and replied, "Sorry, got a late meeting." No response, just silence, the sweet kind. I sat back on the couch, raised my drink, and toasted to the calm because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't reacting. I was orchestrating. Belinda thought she was the star of the show. But the truth was, she'd just been demoted to background noise. And I was finally the director. You ever see one of those crime documentaries where the detective lays out all the evidence on a big table and just stands there staring at it like the universe is whispering secrets through a thumb drive? Yeah, that was me. Except I wasn't solving a murder. I was documenting a slow-motion emotional homicide committed by my wife, Belinda. That night after I got home from Mrs. Delgado's office, I decided it was time for my own little crime scene exhibit. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, grabbed a stack of printed screenshots, receipts, and a highlighter, and got to work. The dining table that once held romantic dinners and anniversary candles now looked like the season finale of CSI Marriage Edition. The first folder was labeled Bank Activity, the financial affair. Oh, it was juicy. Late-night Uber rides to conference venues, Venmo payments to a user named J. Martin wine glass winking face and a $300 Sephora purchase 2 days before her team building retreat. Subtlety clearly wasn't her department. The next folder text messages, hundreds of them. Each one a little nugget of heartbreak and stupidity. "Belinda, you make spreadsheets sexy." "Him, I bet you're amazing at data entry." Winking faced. I actually laughed out loud. "Data entry. That's your flirting game. God, you two deserve each other." Even Milo, who was sitting by my chair, tilted his head like he couldn't believe humans were this dumb. I took a deep breath and kept going. Email confirmations for hotel stays, restaurant bills, and one particularly damning invoice from the Ember Lounge, the same place where I'd filmed her corporate comedy hour with her boss. The timestamps lined up perfectly with my footage. Oh, it was beautiful. Even Mrs. Delgado would have cried tears of legal joy. I printed everything, every message, every transaction, every emoji that now made me want to throw my phone in the ocean. Then I laid them all out on the table piece by piece. The room was dead quiet except for the sound of paper sliding against wood. When I finally stepped back, I almost clapped. It was a masterpiece. My own personal evidence buffet. There were photos on the left, screenshots in the center, bank statements on the right, and at the top, my piece to resistance, the printed transcript of her voicemail confession from that fateful night. I had a one-night stand with my boss, and I'd do it again. Chef's kiss. I took a sip of whiskey, leaned on the counter, and admired my work like an artist at a gallery opening. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to Milo, "tonight's exhibit is titled How to Ruin a Marriage in 10 Easy Payments." Milo yawned. Typical critic. Then I opened my laptop and started organizing everything into a presentation folder. You know, something sleek. Because if I was going to dismantle her reputation in court, I wanted to do it with style. Mrs. Delgado always said, never underestimate the power of presentation. I created tabs, timeline of deception, financial misconduct, moral bankruptcy, and my personal favorite, texts that aged like milk. By midnight, I had a binder so thick it could double as a doorstop. I labeled it in big, bold letters. Exhibit Belinda, season finale. Every page told a story. Every screenshot whispered, "You really thought you could get away with this?" And the best part, I didn't need to say a word. The evidence screamed louder than I ever could. Even Milo seemed to feel the gravity of it all. He sniffed the binder once, sighed deeply, and gave me a look that said, "She really risked steak knife for this guy." "I know, buddy," I said, patting his head. "Some people just aren't built for loyalty or good taste." I sat back, watching the soft glow of the desk lamp cast long shadows across the papers. It almost looked poetic, revenge, but make it art. I thought about confronting her, about laying it all out, about the dramatic showdown people love to see in movies. But the more I pictured it, the less satisfying it seemed. Yelling wouldn't change the facts. Anger wouldn't give me closure. She'd just twist the story, play the victim, maybe even cry those crocodile tears she'd mastered years ago. No, I wanted quiet destruction. The kind where she woke up one morning and realized the Wi-Fi, the car, the credit cards, the comfort, all of it had vanished. And the only person she could blame was staring back at her in the mirror. So, I planned the reveal. Not with shouting, not with fireworks, just silence and paperwork. I made a checklist. 1. Deliver all evidence to Mrs. Delgado. 2. Lock personal accounts. 3. Transfer car ownership. 4. Remove her from insurance. 5. Leave envelope on her side of the bed. Each step brought me closer to closure. I wasn't just dismantling a marriage. I was reclaiming my peace, piece by piece. At one point, I paused to refill my drink and glanced at a framed photo of us from our honeymoon in Hawaii. We were smiling, bright, naive, so sure of forever. I picked it up, stared at it for a moment, then placed it face down on the table. That version of us didn't exist anymore. Around 1 a.m. I called Tar because, let's be honest, revenge hits different when you have an audience. He answered half asleep. "Bro, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Did you catch her again?" "Better," I said. I built a case. He yawned. "You mean like emotionally or legally?" "Both," I said proudly. "I have photos, receipts, text logs. My dining room looks like the FBI's work from home setup." That woke him up. "You serious?" "Dead serious. I've even got categories. My favorite one's called When Adultery Meets Accounting." He started laughing. "Man, you're not just moving on. You're writing a damn dissertation." "Exactly." I said, "This isn't heartbreak, it's research." "Send me pics," he said between laughs. "I want to see this crime scene of yours." I snapped a photo of the table, the neat rows of evidence glowing under the warm light, and sent it. A minute later, he texted back. "Bro, this belongs in a museum." "I know," I replied. "But the Museum of Karma doesn't open till Monday." We laughed until my stomach hurt. When I finally hung up, I felt lighter. Maybe that was the whiskey talking. Or maybe it was the power of finally being done. I stood there for a while staring at the binder, the papers, the proof. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about clarity, about seeing the truth without the fog of love and denial. For months, I'd been living in her version of reality, a place where lies were misunderstandings and guilt was stress. But not anymore. Now I had facts. Facts that didn't need permission to exist. Before heading to bed, I tucked the binder neatly into a briefcase and placed it by the door, ready for my morning meeting with Mrs. Delgado. The house was dark and still. The only sound was Milo's gentle snoring. I took one last look at the table, now empty again, and whispered, "That's it. Story collected. Exhibit complete." I turned off the light, heading upstairs. On the way, I passed the closed bedroom door. She was in there, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world was about to implode. Part of me wanted to feel pity, but mostly I felt satisfaction. When I climbed into bed on the couch, my new preferred sleeping spot, I smiled. Tomorrow, she'd wake up to the sound of consequences knocking, and I'd be sitting there, coffee in hand, ready to watch the show. Morning arrived like a knockoff apology, bright, loud, and way too soon. I'd barely slept. Half because my couch has the personality of a cinder block, and half because I couldn't stop imagining the look on Belinda's face when she realized Karma was a morning person. I got up early, showered, shaved, and brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to dissolve regret. It was D-Day, Deliverance Day. Everything was in place. The binder labeled Exhibit Belinda Season Finale. The sealed envelope sitting prettily on the kitchen counter, and my breakfast plan. If revenge had a smell, it'd be maple syrup and poetic justice. I plated pancakes, 3 of them, perfectly circular, golden, heart-shaped, because symbolism is important. I even drizzled a little extra syrup in the shape of a question mark. Presentation matters when you're serving karma. At 7:42 a.m., I heard the bedroom door creak open. She emerged wearing one of my t-shirts again, acting like domestic bliss hadn't filed for bankruptcy. Her hair was messy, her eyes half closed. She mumbled, stretching. Something smells good. Oh, yeah, I said, flipping a pancake. Something does, she smiled, the same soft, manipulative smile that once could have convinced me the world was fine. Coffee on the table, I said. And something else, too. She patted toward the table, still half asleep, humming. She saw the plate of pancakes and the envelope beside it. And for a brief, glorious second, she probably thought I was being sweet. That maybe after everything she'd won, that maybe I'd forgiven her. The universe was about to clarify. She sat, tore open the envelope, and started reading. Inside was a single note typed neatly, professionally, with all the warmth of an HR memo. Congratulations, you've been promoted to single. P.S. The car's repossessed, rented due, and your boss can't expense heartbreak. Love always. Oh, she blinked once, twice, then she read it again. Her mouth fell open like a trapped. What the hell is this? She said, voice climbing octaves like a panicked violin. I poured coffee into my mug, calm as a Sunday sermon. It's your performance review, I said. You scored high in creativity, low in ethics. Her eyes darted around like the answers might be hiding in the cupboards. You did something, she hissed. Technically, I said. Mrs. Delgado did most of the heavy lifting. I just signed the paperwork. You're crazy, she snapped, clutching the note like it might bite her. No, I said, smiling. I'm organized. Her breathing quickened. What does this mean? What do you mean car's repossessed? Oh, I said casually, flipping another pancake. The lease was under my name. You'll have to Uber to your next late meeting. Her jaw clenched. You can't do that. Already did, I said, taking a bite of pancake. Turns out I'm remarkably efficient when I'm betrayed before breakfast. She stood up so fast the chair screeched across the tile. This is insane, Oliver. Is it? I asked, setting down my fork. Because when you confessed your affair, you sounded pretty confident about your decision-making skills. I'm just matching your energy. She threw the note on the table. You're punishing me. I shrugged. Squinces. It's not punishment, it's balance. Her eyes glistened, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen real tears from her before. This was performance art. I made a mistake, she whispered. Which part? I asked. The cheating or the confession? Her lips trembled. You don't understand. It just happened. Yeah, I said. Sipping coffee. So does food poisoning. That one landed. She blinked, speechless. I could practically see the gears turning, trying to find a way to twist this into a redemption arc. But the network had cancelled her show. You're not even mad? She said finally, sounding confused, like she missed the script where I was supposed to beg or break down. Mad? I laughed. No, that implies I still care enough to raise my voice. I'm done. Finished. Out of emotional budget. She stared at me, shaking her head. You're a monster. Funny, I said. Coming from the woman who made out with her boss in a parking garage. Her nostrils flared. You followed me. Sure did, I said. You were hard to miss considering the fluorescent lighting and your boss's hairline acting as a spotlight. She gasped. You recorded us? I shrugged. Think of it as home security footage, just not for this home. Her hands balled into fists. You can't use that legally. I can't and I will. Morally, you forfeited that conversation at the Ember Lounge. She sat back down, clutching her head. I can't believe this. I know, I said. Self-awareness has never been your strong suit. The room went quiet except for the sound of Milo padding in, tail wagging like he could sense the drama. He sniffed the air, then sat beside me. Good boy, I said, scratching his ear. You want a pancake? Belinda glared. You're feeding the dog pancakes while we're having a serious conversation. Technically, I'm having breakfast, I said. You're having consequences. Her face went red. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. Oh, please do, I said cheerfully. Mrs. Delgado loves a challenge. She's already color-coded your downfall. She stormed toward the counter, grabbed her phone, and started furiously typing, probably texting Mr. Hairline and Heartache for sympathy. I walked over, leaned against the doorway, and said, by the way, your phone bill's due tomorrow. That's on you now, too. She froze. You cut me off completely, I said. Financial independence builds character. She spun around. Eyes wild. I have nowhere to go. Sure you do, I said. You've got a boss who seems very accommodating. The silence that followed was delicious. You could have buttered it and served it with brunch. She threw her phone onto the couch and screamed, you humiliated me. I smiled. Not yet. I've been very discreet, but keep yelling. I'll upload the video to a private drive called Career Limiting Moves. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time in weeks, she looked small, human, maybe even scared, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting a little. I loved her once, deeply, but the woman standing in front of me wasn't the one I married. She'd traded vows for validation and integrity for instant gratification. So, no, I didn't feel guilty for letting her sit in the mess she made. I took my plate to the sink, rinsed it, and said quietly, "You should start packing." She blinked. "You're kicking me out." "Consider it an early checkout," I said. "No refund, Oliver." "Belinda," I interrupted. "I wish you luck. Truly, but you don't get to burn down the house and act surprised when the smoke alarm goes off." She stood there shaking. "You'll regret this." I turned, leaning against the counter. "I already regretted marrying you. This part's just damage control." Her lip quivered. "You're cold." "I'm healed," I said simply. For a long, quiet moment, she just stared at me, maybe waiting for me to crack, but I didn't. I couldn't. I'd already grieved the marriage. This was the epilogue. Finally, she grabbed her bag, muttered something under her breath, and stormed out. The door slammed hard enough to rattle a frame on the wall. The house fell silent again. I exhaled long and steady. The tension that had lived in my shoulders for months finally loosened. Milo trotted over and rested his head on my leg, tail thumping softly. "It's just us now, buddy," I said, scratching his ears. "And look at that. We finally have peace and pancakes." I sat back down, poured another cup of coffee, and stared at the empty seat across from me. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt earned, like quiet was no longer the absence of noise, but the presence of sanity. The phone buzz. A text from Tar. "Did she get the note?" I smiled and typed back. "She got the deluxe package." Screaming denial. Exit slam. 10 out of 10 performance. He replied with a laughing emoji. "And damn, man. You're free." Free. The word looked good on the screen. I leaned back, watching the morning light spill across the kitchen. The same kitchen that had heard every fight, every fake apology, every lie. Today it felt new, lighter, like the house itself was relieved she was gone. I grabbed my phone again and opened my playlist. Song number 1, "Don't Stop Me Now." Fitting. I turned up the volume until Milo's ears perked. Dancing in pajama pants at 8 a.m. wasn't on my bucket list, but freedom does strange things to a man. I sang along off-key, flipping pancakes with one hand and air guitaring with the spatula in the other. Halfway through the song, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. Messy hair, wrinkled t-shirt, ridiculous grin, and thought, yeah, this guy's going to be okay. Before heading out to meet Mrs. Delgado to file the final set of documents, I cleaned the kitchen, fed Milo, and tucked the envelope back into my drawer. A keepsake, not of her, but of the moment I took my life back. As I grabbed my keys, I noticed her mug still sitting on the counter, lipstick print and all. I considered throwing it out, then decided against it. No, let it stay. A reminder of what blind trust costs. I walked to the door, sunlight spilling across the floor. I took a deep breath, smiled, and whispered to myself, "Welcome to your new morning routine." Then I stepped outside, coffee in one hand, freedom in the other. If you've never been to divorce court, let me paint you a picture. It's like The Office meets Judge Judy. The same awkward silences, the same forced smiles, and absolutely no snacks. Everyone's pretending to be civilized while secretly calculating how many ways they can ruin each other before lunch. Walking in that morning, I felt oddly calm. Maybe it was the coffee. Maybe it was the relief that this circus was finally reaching its last act. Belinda, meanwhile, looked like she'd spent the night wrestling her conscience and lost. She was sitting 2 rows ahead, pretending to scroll through her phone like she wasn't fighting the urge to hurl it at me. Her lawyer sat beside her. Some guy named Derek with slick back hair and an ego so shiny it could have been used as a mirror. Mrs. Delgado, my legal gladiator, gave me a nod. "Ready?" she whispered. "Born ready," I said. "Let's turn heartbreak into case law." The bailiff called the session to order. The judge entered. A silver-haired woman with glasses perched halfway down her nose and a face that said she'd seen it all. If this woman's life were a movie, it would be called 50 Shades of Divorce. Case number 4823, Carver vs. Carver, the clerk announced. The judge glanced over her glasses at both of us. "Let's make this quick. I skipped breakfast." Mrs. Delgado smiled faintly. "Your Honor, we'll be as efficient as possible." Belinda's lawyer cleared his throat, instantly trying to charm. "Your Honor, my client is simply seeking a fair division of marital assets. She contributed greatly to the household, and the judge raised a hand. Save the speech. I'll see the paperwork. Mrs. Delgado slid our neatly labeled folder across the bench. I swear the sound it made, paper gliding over wood, was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. Your Honor, she said, this is Exhibit Belinda season finale. Includes proof of infidelity, financial mismanagement, and enough text messages to crash a phone. The judge adjusted her glasses and flipped open the binder. Belinda shifted in her seat. Her lawyer tried to keep his poker face, but I could tell by the twitch in his jaw he hadn't been briefed on all the evidence. Page 1, screenshots of texts between Belinda and her boss. Page 2, hotel receipts. Page 3, the video. Yes, the one T edited with jazz music and tasteful fade-outs. When the video started playing on the courtroom monitor, you could have heard a pin drop. There they were. Belinda and Mr. Hairline in glorious 1080p. Mrs. Delgado had even added subtitles for clarity. Belinda, you make spreadsheets sexy. Boss, only for you, baby. The courtroom collectively exhaled a scandalized oof. Even the judge's eyebrows lifted, and I swear one juror in the back whispered, "Yikes." Belinda's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, this is highly inappropriate. The judge waved him off. Oh, hush. It's evidence and oddly cinematic. Mrs. Delgado smiled sweetly. My IT consultant added the transitions, Your Honor. Very professional, the judge said dryly. Continue. The footage ended with Belinda's boss wiping lipstick off his chin. When the screen went dark, the silence was thicker than courtroom coffee. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Carver, is this you texting? You make spreadsheets sexy. Belinda froze. Her lawyer opened his mouth, but she beat him to it. I can explain. No need, the judge said, closing the folder. I've been married 3 times. I know that look. A few snickers rippled through the courtroom. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was doing cartwheels. Mrs. Delgado stood. Your Honor, in light of this overwhelming evidence, we request that my client retain full ownership of the marital property and all financial accounts. Mrs. Carver's actions demonstrate clear breach of marital trust and misuse of shared funds. Belinda's lawyer scrambled, Your Honor, we contend that Mr. Carver's behavior since the incident. Specifically, his vindictive tone has caused undue emotional distress to my client. The judge looked at him like he'd just asked her to babysit on a Friday night. Emotional distress? She said, Sir, your client was doing the electric slide with her boss in a hotel bar. I'd call that cardio, not distress. Even the bailiff chuckled. Mrs. Delgado smirked. We rest our case. Belinda shot me a glare sharp enough to slice marble. I just smiled politely like a man watching karma finish dessert. The judge shuffled through some papers, made a few notes, then looked at both of us. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Carver retains ownership of the house, vehicle, and all joint accounts. Mrs. Carver forfeits claim due to breach of fiduciary and marital trust. Belinda gasped. That's not fair. The judge shrugged. Neither was your extracurricular activity. Next case. Bang. Gavel down. It was the sound of freedom. I exhaled. The kind of deep exhale that feels like you're letting go of a ghost. Mrs. Delgado turned to me, her grin subtle but victorious. Congratulations, Mr. Carver, she whispered. You're officially a free man. And for what it's worth, you handled that beautifully. Thanks, I said. I owe you coffee and maybe a commemorative trophy. She laughed. Buy me a latte and we'll call it even. Belinda stormed out of the courtroom before I could say anything. Heels clacking against the tile like punctuation marks of defeat. I waited until she disappeared around the corner before letting out a long satisfied sigh. Outside, the air felt fresher, lighter. Divorce shouldn't feel like a victory, but damn, it tasted like one. I called Tar. Bro, he said, tell me the judge loved the video. She did, I said. She called it cinematic. Tar hooped. So loud people turned to stare. I'm adding that to my resume. Editor of legally admissible heartbreak content. Put it under special skills. I said, so you're free now? Free and well documented. Man, you got to celebrate drinks tonight. Absolutely, I said. I'm buying with my own card this time. We met later at a rooftop bar, the kind of place with overpriced cocktails and string lights designed to make regret look romantic. Tar raised his glass to new beginnings. I clinked mine against his and better endings. We laughed for the first time in months. It wasn't bitter. It was pure stupid joy. Halfway through the night, my phone buzzed. A message from Belinda. You ruined me. I stared at it for a second, then typed back. No, You did that yourself. I just submitted the paperwork. Send. I turned my phone face down and kept drinking. He leaned over. Was that her? Yep. What did she say? Nothing new. Just confirming she's still allergic to accountability. He snorted beer through his nose. You're savage. I'm honest. I said there's a difference. Later that night, I walked home alone. City lights bouncing off the pavement. The kind of quiet hum that only exists when something heavy finally lifts off your shoulders. I passed a bakery that used to be our Saturday morning spot. The smell hit me. Warm bread, sugar, nostalgia. But this time it didn't hurt. It just was. I stopped outside, watched a couple laughing inside, and smiled. Not the bitter kind, the real kind. Because despite everything, I'd survived it. Back home, I changed into sweats, grabbed Milo's leash, and took him for a late night walk. He sniffed every bush like it owed him money, tail wagging like life was simple. Maybe he was onto something. Buddy, I said, we did it. Court's over. Freedom reinstated. He barked once approvingly. When we got back, I poured myself one last drink, sat on the couch, and turned on some background jazz, the same kind T had used in the video. Fitting soundtrack for the credits. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment the judge said the words, "Mr. Carver retains ownership." That phrase was going to live rentré in my head forever, unlike Belinda. I raised my glass in a mock toast to the empty room. Here's to honesty, loyalty, and knowing when to lawyer up. Milo jumped on the couch beside me, resting his head on my leg. I ruffled his fur. We're going to be fine, kid. Turns out justice has good taste. Before turning in for the night, I texted Mrs. Delgado one last time. Thank you for everything. You made the process painless. She replied within minutes. It's never painless, Mr. Carver, but it's always worth it. I smiled, shut off my phone, and sat there in the quiet. For once, it wasn't the lonely kind of quiet. It was peaceful. Divorce court wasn't supposed to be funny. But that day, it had been a comedy. The kind where the villain trips over her own script, the audience applauds, and the protagonist walks off into the sunset holding a stack of legally binding happiness. When I finally crawled into bed, I didn't dream about her. I dreamed about pancakes, passports, and possibilities because tomorrow wasn't a continuation of the past. It was the pilot episode of something entirely new. A month after the courtroom grand finale, peace had finally become my favorite background noise. No drama, no emotional invoices, just me, Milo, and the occasional Netflix binge that didn't involve marital infidelity. Life was smooth until Belinda's sister, Lydia, sent me an invite that read, "Family gathering. Be civil. It's her birthday." I should have ignored it. But curiosity and pettiness are cousins. And I happen to be close with both. So there I was, walking into Lydia's overly decorated suburban living room. Balloons everywhere, fake laughter bouncing off the walls, and the guest of dishonor standing in the middle, clutching a wine glass like she'd earned it. Belinda froze when she saw me. The air went tight enough to file taxes on. "Oliver," she said, forcing a smile. "Didn't think you'd show." "Oh, I wouldn't miss this," I said. "I brought a gift, too." Her mom tried to play peacemaker. "Let's all be adults tonight." "Absolutely," I said. Adults love transparency. People started whispering. Lydia's husband whispered, "This will be good." I pretended not to hear. Belinda, meanwhile, was doing that nervous laugh thing like if she laughed hard enough, she could make reality leave the room. "What gift could you possibly have for me?" she asked. I held up my phone, connected it to the Bluetooth speaker, and smiled. Audio memories. The first few seconds were harmless. Ambient noise, clinking glasses. Then her voice came on, clear as crystal. "You taste better than my husband's cooking." Boom. Instant silence. Someone dropped a fork. Her mom gasped like she'd just witnessed a ghost. Her boss's wife, yes, the boss's wife, was standing right there, frozen mid-sip. You could feel the shock ripple through the room like an electrical surge. "Turn that off." Belinda screamed, lunging toward me, but I stepped back calm as a yoga instructor. "Oh, come on," I said. "You said it publicly. I'm just helping you own it." Her boss's wife threw her wine in her husband's face. The guy choked, sputtered, and yelled. It wasn't what it sounded like, which made everyone laugh because, well, it sounded exactly like what it was. Belinda's mother fainted into the cake. Lydia yelled, "Not on the buttercream," because priorities. The whole place erupted in chaos, screaming, crying, arguing, and I just stood there sipping my soda like it was a fine vintage. I leaned toward the nearest waiter and said, "Add that to my bill, please. Entertainment fee." Then I turned, smiled at the mess I didn't have to clean up anymore, and walked out. Outside, the night air felt good, light, free, earned. I slid into my car, rolled down the window, and whispered, "Happy birthday, Belinda." Some gifts just keep giving. It's funny how quiet can sound different after a storm. For months, silence used to feel heavy, like waiting for a fight to start. Now, it's peace with good acoustics. The only thing breaking at most mornings is Milo's tail thumping against the floor, demanding breakfast like rent's due. My new routine's simple. Wake up, stretch, make coffee, and not think about Belinda. The coffee part's easy. The last one's a little trickier. Every now and then, I'll pass her old mug in the cabinet. The one that says Boss Lady. I don't throw it away. It reminds me to never ignore red flags just because they're printed on ceramic. People keep asking, do you regret it? The marriage? The whole messy ending? I tell them the truth. Sure. I regret the years I spent giving CPR to something that was already dead. But the ending? No. Best plot twist of my life. I still talk to Mrs. Delgado sometimes. She calls occasionally just to check if I'm emotionally solvent. Her words, not mine. Tar, on the other hand, won't shut up about turning my story into a podcast. Heartbreak and Hard Drives, his working title. I told him to wait until the restraining order's hypothetical works better, too. Turns out when you remove daily chaos from your life, productivity skyrockets. Who knew? I've even started jogging again. Not for fitness. Just to prove to myself I can run away from something without emotional baggage this time. Belinda, last I heard, she's finding herself. Translation, jobless, carless, and probably allergic to accountability. Her boss got demoted after the birthday fiasco went viral. Thank you, Internet. Actions have consequences, and apparently Yelp reviews. The best part of my mornings now is the small stuff. My pancakes don't burn. My Wi-Fi connects instantly. My peace of mind has a password only I know. Sometimes I'll look at Milo and say, "Buddy, you're the only one I'd share my passwords with." And he just blinks like, "Damn right." There's something liberating about rebuilding your life without needing permission. I used to think revenge was the reward, but it isn't. Pieces. Revenge just makes the story entertaining. Peace gives it a happy ending. Every weekend I sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and a sense of humor sharp enough to cut through nostalgia. Sometimes I even laugh, remembering her line, "I'd do it again." And yeah, I believe her, but I'd do it again, too. The part where I walked away because now the only thing I wake up next to is my own damn sanity and it doesn't lie, cheat, or need Wi-Fi to feel loved.